Here's what we see from the last episode of the last 7 days, a Crifoth campaign. We see the heroes, the survivors, really, for there are no heroes in Crifoth, deep underground in the erudite sanctum. We see them talking when they hear an odd knock on the wall, but they're 400 feet on the ground and there are no doors in this chamber. Stepping through a hollow in the walls, an ash elf. She speaks and tells them to go up, to go to the surface, into the ruins on top of this sanctum, to speak with the ash elves who wish to watch them over the last remaining days that they have. The group decides to flee instead. What they find is the world has changed. Stars are falling and crashing into Crifoth, and where they crash, demons arise and hunters spill out. They look at the sun, the golden sun, and see it's been cut in twain, and the lower half of it is bleeding across the sky. And then the meteors fall around them, and two pit fiends from the devil city of Malice emerge, the Pathos Shadow and the Black Shadow. After a harrowing battle, they are able to destroy the Black Shadow, and the Pathos Shadow is banished away, in which case Malice's namesake, the Archfiend once known as Joy Miron, now known only as Malice, appeared before them, kidnapped Lilith, and disappeared back into the Aether, back into the heart of Malice. We continue right where that scene ends, where he disappears in a blinding flash of black. Not light, no. The light is actually pulled from your eyes, and when it returns, neither Malice nor Lilith are there. Then spider webs begin to crack their way throughout the reality around you. Something begins to shake. You feel a heat behind you, erudite. And then the Pathos Shadow you had banished, as your banishment comes to an end, explodes out from the Aether and appears behind you. It is a massive being of writhing shadow and fire that wreathes it all. Its wings spread, and it brings down its sword in one clear strike on top of you. What's your AC?
Good old 18.
Good old 18. All right, give me 1 second here to double check something. All right. Do you want to cast shield or something as this happens?
That is with shield.
That is with shield. Oh, lovely. The sword careens into your back. You feel nothing but heat and fire as it breaks through arcane ward after arcane ward. You're taking a total of 60 points of damage, 30 of which are fire. It then makes its next attack. All right, that's another hit. You take another 16 points of damage. This one is bludgeoning. And then the next attack. Oh, Lord, another hit. You take 40 points of damage, bludgeoning, half fire. And then the next attack. This one luckily misses. We're going to go to you, Murmur. Murmur, in a moment, you were staring at an archdemon you knew very well, but that one that's changed, something that looked different than what it used to, almost godly in appearance. Then it disappeared with Lilith. And then the Pathos Shadow appears again, and it begins to beat the erudite into the ground. Tell me, Murmur, what is your reaction to all of this?
Murmur is overcome by everything that has happened in the span of the last couple of seconds. He sees the erudite just getting blasted by this familiar pit fiend from Malice, and he glances from the erudite's crumpled body to the oracle, and then he almost starts to look for Lilith, but then he remembers, oh right, she's gone. He's going to take. Are we still in initiative, or are we just acting and reacting at this point? Okay. Yeah, so he is actually going to, still with his obsidian longsword and shield up, he is going to start to move away from this pit fiend. This slow, sort of steady crawl, trying not to attract its ire if possible. But it looks like he's trying to leave.
Erudite, what state are you in right now?
The massive amount of damage inflicted upon the erudite is one that would cause him to be completely dead at this point. You reduced not only my blood points to 0, but my blood points to a value that is equal to its negative. So I am outright slain by this.
Your body is nothing more than a burnt crisp of bone and a little bit of cloth. The flesh basically bleeding into the great blood muck that you are already standing in. You tell me, Oracle, you who have the power to control life and death, but someone who has weakened himself, tell me, Oracle, what do you do when you see this happen? You're muted.
As I see the erudite being completely demolished by a single strike from the previously banished devil, I feel like hope draining from me, that the end will come a lot sooner, but not this day. As I close my eyes, I open my veils, and there is a scar, a diamond-shaped scar at right at the center of my chest. I open my hands and look at the sky and say, "Deliver us from evil." And I will invoke my divine intervention to...
Nice. First time I've ever seen this feature used. So go ahead and make your D100 roll. Did you make it?
I'm level 20, so it automatically succeeds.
Oh, that's right. Perfect.
I call upon the heavens to deliver us to a safe place away from this devil.
I like it. Erudite, if you could have destroyed this pit fiend in one way, which way would you have done it?
The erudite knows that no physical wound or even magical wound could really permanently delete or permanently harm and defeat a demon of such power. To defeat something like that, to defeat almost a lesser god at that point, is to erase it from existence, to make the world think that it was never there in the first place.
So then, Erudite, you open your eyes, and when you open your eyes, you're lying face down in the mud, right? It blinds you for a second, but you shake your head, and you pick yourself up, and you see that you're lying half naked, covered in scraps of robes. There is a light pouring from where your heart should be, as if there's a hole there. And then that light begins to fade, and the hole seemingly closes. And you turn, and you see the pathos shadow behind you, and you undo it. You're not sure how you undo it, but then you are sure, for you're the erudite. You know these things. And you know that the oracle has awoken the divine spark inside of you through his own divine spark. And like that, the pathos shadow is gone, reduced to sand, reduced to dust, blown away as if it was never there. I'm going to say you have no grit points, but you're back at your full blood points because of the divine intervention. So that's what we have for right now. You guys just saw this happen and Lilith is gone. What do you three do now?
The erudite is coughing up what his body wants to cough up blood, but I imagine nothing comes out. It's just a dry heave. The divine magic just knitting his body together, but his mind still hasn't quite caught up to it yet. He's regaining his composure. He leans on his silver sword to get up onto his feet, and then from there the dust stirs as he, lifts off at the ground again. His hood is burnt away, revealing his face. It's completely scarred, bald. And he looks with his one good eye now. He looks to the distance where he knows that Malice is, but he does not let out a scream of anger at the departure of his sister. He does not let out weeps or tears at her loss. Not even a sigh would leave him. And he would say, "We must go."
As I tie my robes back, the diamond-shaped scar on my chest now gone, completely erased. I tie it and say, "Lead the way."
And Murmur will just wordlessly walk in the direction of Malice, the horned helm not even facing his two companions, almost like a machine, just walking in that direction.
You walk to certain death that way.
I
We're
know.
already down one. I don't want to lose another one of us.
Where would you suggest we go?
As far as we can. Where the bleeding sun cannot reach us.
And Murmur just nods his horned helmet and then looks back to the erudite to see which direction he would have them travel in.
And the erudite continues to float onwards, just in some direction, away from Malice, away from this falling sky of meteors and stars and sun shards.
You look up, erudite, and you see in the direction you're going, atop one of the dunes, are those four spectral, maybe, riders or silhouettes. They're all watching you three, and one of them still has a sword that is drawn. It seems that no matter how close you move towards them, they themselves and the dune that they stand on never get closer. It's as if the distance between you is a constant that will never change. The sky, picture it with me, is bleeding. The sun is a smear completely now, for the upper half has also just been completely obliterated. There's a swirl on the horizon, almost like look at a lava lamp and then break it, but instead of it spilling everywhere, it just continues to float upwards into infinity. That's what one edge of the sky looks like. And then on the other edge of the sky, there is the steel sun, the slate gray sun, slowly rising up over the horizon. And then filling the black sky that's slowly turning gray and gold together are just the falling stars whirling around. They're beginning to slow now. The stars aren't falling with the same speed, as if they no longer need to fall, as if they've been told to silence themselves, to shorten themselves, to still themselves. And you guys continue moving. And the steel gray sun continues rising, officially marking this as the third day. And as the third day comes upon you, I need everyone to make me a Constitution saving throw as the heat becomes unbearable. You're looking for a DC 20. So just let me know if you failed it verbally. All right, so Erudite's got it.
I'm sorry, real quick. Did we get a rest of some kind between?
There's been no rest.
No rest. Okay.
Yes.
Let me see some real quick.
I failed, of course.
Yeah, you failed, Yannis.
And surprisingly, so did Murmur with a 19, and I used effort as well.
Both of you are going to be taking 3 points of exhaustion. As the heat grows to the point that the blood at your feet is almost boiling. And if it wasn't for the fact that the Oracle is used to pain, that the Murmur is armored, and that the Erudite was floating, surely you'd be losing your feet right now. For now you're moving through this blood fog, this steam, this haze. It's red and it tastes of copper and it smells horrendous. But yet you move through it. And it clings to your body, to your skin. Your white, tanned, wind-burnt skin, it begins to take on this red shade to it. Your armor, Murmur, looks rusted, as if you're basically encased in blood. Oracle, your white robes are stained. This dark, sickly brown color, the same color of dried blood after days, after years of just sitting there, of staining walls and robes. And yet you three continue to walk forward through this muck. And then, in the slate gray light, you see something in the distance. You see another figure. Not the four spectral, of course, not the four riders, but something moving on all fours. Something that's hunched and moving quickly. And it stops, and it lifts itself. And you can see through how the shadows play on this blood steam, and how the light of steel gray sunbeams hit it, that its head is in the shape of a lizard's. And a tongue snakes out and goes back in, and it's forked. And its head turns to you all. And then it opens its mouth, and this weird, odd, strange, almost like a mixture of a geese honking, a T-Rex roaring, and then insects chirping comes out of its mouth. It closes its mouth. Nice. And then you hear it coming from the horizon from further on. And it begins to move towards you three rapidly on all fours. What do you three do?
The erudite lifts himself up off the ground even more. His levitation spell proving useful, as always, as he gains more and more feet and ascends.
Murmur, Yannis?
Yeah, Murmur is going to, I mean, he probably already had his shield and sword at the ready. He's going to keep that at the ready and continue moving slightly more cautiously.
How far is it?
I'm going to say it's about 100 feet away right now.
I'm gonna touch my little gleaming star around my neck, and I'll cast Sanctuary on myself.
The creature gets closer and closer, and you, erudite, as you take up more space above the blood mist, not fully above it, but you're getting higher, you can see it clearly for what it may actually truly be. You can tell from its scales, from its very humanoid appearance, from its long spined back, and from the clothes that it's wearing, essentially a loincloth, with also a cloth kind of crisscrossing its chest and back, that this is a Suri, right? One of the lizard folk of Crifoth. And as it gets closer, it gets to about 30 feet, and now the other two of you can recognize it too. And as the blood mist kind of moves and churns around you guys, it pulls itself back onto its haunches and it's looking at you, its eyes unblinking. And it opens its mouth, and you hear this, human. And it waits for you to respond.
Murmur will just look at it through the visor of his helmet and then just say quietly, "Yes, what is it that you want, Sasuri?"
It's 30 feet away and cannot hear you. So it just kind of hunches over a little bit more and waits for a louder response.
And at that, Murmur will glance at the erudite and the oracle to see what they're going to do.
The erudite, probably about 50 feet in the air or something like that, has drawn his silver sword, and it's beginning to wreathe itself in flame. And he would bellow out now a bit more, just a higher volume to his voice. He's not yelling. Turn back, people eater.
It looks. Go ahead. I was gonna say, it looks up and it sees you, covered in blood, literally dripping in it as it stains your skin. Your sword suddenly bursting into flame, and as your voice booms across, it lets out like a whippet or croak and turns around and quickly scampers off. As it does so, it's honking the entire time, much like a goose would as it flies through the air. And then you begin to hear off in the distance similar sounds, as if there's a whole pack, a whole tribe of them off in the distance. But you cannot see them through the blood mist, not yet.
Erudite would yell down to his companions, "There are more on the horizon."
And at that, Murmur will start sprinting if he can, trying to obviously keep an eye on anything that might cause him to trip or stumble, but I'm sure that's difficult in the blood fog anyway. But he's definitely moving much faster now.
I would say to my companions, seems though all the peoples of this dying world came to see the last humans.
I think it is of mere consequence, Oracle. You see patterns in things that have no patterns. We are the last three. And so, of course, anything that we come across would be visiting the last three humans. And he's already kind of descending now, and he's breathing a sigil in his offhand, and he would land between the two of you. And as he would finish an incantation of a spell, both of you feel a weightlessness to you as he casts fly on both of you using a higher level spell slot. So now you both have you, Oracle, and the Erudite all have a fly speed of 60 feet now. And I would come on to the skies as I would urge you to fly high in the sky over top of this oncoming horde of lizard people.
So we're all able to fly now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So feeling this, Murmur would sort of take a step forward and then realize that he can do this and just start drifting up, obviously controlled by him. And for probably the first time since you've known him, you just hear this very faint kind of it's like he's actually seems to be enjoying this as he rises above the or struggles to rise through the blood fog.
I would soar up next to the Erudite with surprisingly accustomed to flying.
So if it's your intention all to rise above the blood fog, which I think it is, you guys continue climbing higher and higher and higher to the point where the air is thinner and it's a little bit harder to breathe. But when you finally pierce it and you guys continue to climb a little bit more, you're extraordinarily high in the sky. When you look down, you can see for leagues uncounted. You can see these odd, black, twisted citadels that archdemons and tieflings once inhabited. You can see countless ruins drowning in blood sand. You can see mountains whose tops are broken and scattered like glass from shattered window panes across the landscape. You see a vast, poisoned sea. You see the clouds themselves, gray and black in color, for they no longer rain pure water, but soot-tasted water, or blood water itself. And then you see something else. Something in the center of the great blood fog leagues, far, far away. What you see there is a massive mountain. But your eyes are sharp, and you know this mountain is not made of rock, nor is it made of sand, nor is it made only of bone, but it's made out of tons, thousands, maybe even millions of corpses stacked up high and raised far above the blood fog. Its peak so high that the top of it is actually frosted. This mountain, it calls to you. When you see it, you hear in the backs of your heads the voices of countless humans. And they're only there for a moment. They say your names, your actual names, in the case of the Oracle or the Erudite, or even you, Murmur. Or they say something about you, or they call to you. They ask for your help, for you to kill them, for you to fight them, for you to save them, for you to love them, for you to fuck them, some of them. And the voices, they come in, they come out, they come in, they come out, and then they're gone. And you just see that great dark mountain throwing its shadow across the land. You see that the rest of Crifoth is just circling it. And then you see the gray slate steel sun above you all. And you feel that heat baking at you. All of you, please make me another Constitution saving throw. Murmur, since you're in armor, make it with disadvantage. It's cooler up here in the stratosphere of Crifoth. oddly enough. If you fail, you're taking only 2 more points of exhaustion instead of 3. Tell me, you three, you had this mountain, or you had the black citadels. In the distance, you can even see Malice, the great cathedral that it once might have been, or maybe a gladiatorial arena, or maybe some other thing of some construction of twisted pillars and non-Euclidean geometry. You see that city off in the distance. You also see the mountain of corpses, and you see other landmarks too, other cities, other ruins. Where do you guys choose to go?
Tell me, Oracle. What path have you seen ahead?
I point towards the southwest. Come, there's a small place, maybe still untainted by the darkness.
And when you point to that southwest, what you guys will see is a long, maybe 400 or 500-foot wide and incountably long river of oil slick, rainbow-colored sheening, just splitting across the landscape.
The erudite would actually chuckle when you say, a place untainted by darkness. Just like as if that was an impossibility.
There is no such thing.
The oracle would close his eyes and focus to trying to catch one of the million of visions bouncing between the stars, to catch a glimpse whether this small hidden alcove is still untainted.
Are you casting a spell to do this, or something else? Like augury or something like that? You're muted.
An augury, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You look into the space between the stars, and you can see how light faintly dances between them. And in this light, you see possibilities. And you know how looking into the future works. It's as if you're looking at a desert where every single grain of sand is another possibility, and you're just seeing them all at once flash through you. For most mortals, it's too much, and it overwhelms their brains, or they just see things that are impossible. But you, Oracle, you see something. You see a possibility. And what that possibility is this. You see yourself and your 3 comrades sitting on the bank of that river, and you see another robed figure sitting on the opposite side of that bank. And you know, Oracle, in that moment, that the other robed figure isn't looking at you 3. He's looking at you. He's looking at you through your augury, through your vision, through your spell. And then it fades, and you once again just see stars.
Maybe it's not so untainted as I hope, but it should be interesting nonetheless.
But is it safe
That is the question.
for one morning?
If it's not, I'll make it. At
Then I
least
will
until
join you.
then.
I will join you. Lead us.
I will drift towards it.
And I'll follow.
Murmur will follow behind at a slight distance.
Now, the flash spell only lasts for 10 minutes, so you continuously be casting this erudite, or are you guys going to be walking along a lot of this distance?
Once we gain kind of this vantage point in a destination, we would fall harmlessly to the ground as erudite just boom 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 feather falls us. And we continue the walking the rest of the way.
All right. As you guys are walking, you can still hear the croaking and the honking and the hollering of the city in the distance. They never quite leave you guys entirely. They're always kind of haunting this blood mist, but you never see the shadows. And you walk, all of you, for a very long time as the burning heat of the steel gray sun bears down on all of you. And as the other sun, now obliterated and now nothing but a lava lamp smear on one end of the horizon, begins to slowly fade away, you, Murmur, see it first. It looks like the steel gray sun is crying. And by that, what I mean is there's a black line dripping from the bottom of it, splitting from the sky, and landing somewhere off on the horizon that you cannot see. And when you see that, you feel the heat is just still fucking unbearable. It's only getting worse with every passing second, to the fact that it feels like your armor is burning you, and that the sand that you're walking on, Oracle, is also just scalding and scraping at your feet, and the air around you, Erudite, is just boiling away at your flesh. So all of you, please make another Constitution saving throw for me. Again, with disadvantage on Murmur, as you guys travel through Crifoth to get to where you need to go.
So, question: could I burn some effort to go ahead and just do a straight roll on this?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. It's 2 passes. Will Murmur continue to die on the inside? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, hang on a second. Yes, he will with a 17.
Nice. Take another 3 points of exhaustion if you would, Murmur. And just to refresh our memories, allow me to pull it up real quick, because I believe you're at 6 points now, correct? All right, which means you are suffering quite a bit. Oh my lord, what is all this nonsense? One moment as I look up what the effects of level 6 are.
I could list them out. I have the document up. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
You're looking at it right now? Okay, so,
yep.
What page are you on? Oh, no, I got it, 46.
Yeah,
all
46. Right. Yeah. So basically, do you want me to go through all 6?
Yeah, go through all 6.
All right. So my maximum grit is reduced by 1d4, which I rolled. It was only a 3, so that's not a big deal. I do have disadvantage on initiative checks. I only recover half of my grit after a short rest when spending hit dice. Now my movement speed is halved, and there's a spell thing, but I don't need to worry about that. I have disadvantage on all intelligence, wisdom, charisma, ability checks, and saving throws. And now my maximum grit is reduced by 1d6, which I will roll now, which is a 3. So Murmur is pretty fucked up at this point.
So Murmur is falling back, and Yannis, you're at 3 as well, correct, Oracle? All right. And do you have any erudite?
I am 1 point below my threshold, so I am good.
Okay. So you guys continue walking through this Hellworld until you come to these massive, tall, black, jagged cliffs. They look as if they're made of obsidian, maybe, and they're red-veined as well, oddly enough. When you get there, these cliffs have a kind of valley going through them. On both sides of the valley are just these jagged walls of glass obsidian blades, right? Naturally formed, of course, or as far as the eye can tell. It's about 10 feet wide, this path through the cliffs. Will you guys attempt to go through here, or will you try to find another path through? And you could tell, just to give you some more information, when you look down this path, it's very dark on the inside. Light doesn't penetrate very well down in this odd winding valley path here, if you can even call it a valley. More like a tunnel through an obsidian mountain, really. And when you get closer to it, you can just hear sounds echoing around of it. Natural sounds, of course, but how the echoes distort them, it sounds odd, maybe even evil, if you would. But what isn't evil in this world? So,
do we brave the valley? The erudite asks his 2 companions.
All you hear from Murmur is just this very sort of heavy, rasping kind of, and you can see that his arms and legs are shaking ever so slightly. This is probably, and these are very slight things, but this is probably the most exhausted you've ever seen him.
The erudite would turn to the oracle. waiting for his response.
Would I have passed through these places before?
Yeah, all of you have passed through places like this before. There's natural formations of like huge like outcroppings of obsidian rising from the ground, and they're often so big that they had these paths kind of cut through them, right? By oil or by war or by the few rivers that remain, or maybe even primordials or something like that.
Well, there is shade in there at least.
And Murmur actually does speak up at that and just says, I think I need to rest. I need food, water, if there is any to be found. We should rest soon.
The Erudite nods as well. He agrees. He is weary, despite not showing it. He's weary in a different way. He's been battered and bruised. He's not succumbing to the same elemental exhaustion that you're facing, Murmur, but he's facing a different kind of exhaustion. An exhaustion that only spellcasters or wizards or sorcerers can feel.
Knowing that these places maybe have any residue of liquid that used to run through them, and shade, I would say to the others, let us at least go in there and set up camp.
You guys, with what little you have, you go inside the mouth of this valley. They'll give yourselves a little bit of protection, and you sit down in the sand and you begin to bring out what rations you have, likely the dried meat of some person or creature you killed a long time ago, what little water you have left. A lot of your water has had basically blood get into it, so the water you're drinking just has that coppery middle taste as well. And as you guys sit down, about an hour passes. Now, short rest in Crifoth is 8 hours. So, about an hour in, you murmur as you're trying to recuperate your energy. You see off in the distance, right in the open blood fields that you guys just walked out of, you see shadows kind of moving around quickly in the blood mist, in the blood fog. And then you guys begin to hear that croaking again. And then the honking as the Sasuri draw close by. What do you guys do?
So Murmur, with this mouthful of dried, awful meat, sort of swallows and says, "The lizard folk, they are coming. Should we try to talk to them like we did with the orcs, or do you think they are more interested in eating us?"
They would eat us as quick as they would spot us. I would make us hide from their eyes, but I fear I cannot hide us from their keen noses.
First of all, I would say that anytime we would sit to eat or drink, I would, with a slight whisper, cleanse any taint from our food or drink before we eat, so that we're always safe. Secondly, I'd say we could try to lose them in these passages, although I'd say they're pretty familiar with them.
I would say that, yeah, they would know them better than we do. And that's coming from the man who knows everything.
How much time do you think we have?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all.
We need to make a decision. We cannot sit around talking about it. And Murmur is going to get up, sort of wiping his hands on his breeches and start getting his equipment together.
Well, we cannot outrun them. We cannot fight them all. But we sure as hell can scare them.
This is true. What did you have in mind?
Smoke and mirrors. Very scary ones.
We have another option. Perhaps if smoke and mirrors do not work, real smoke and shards of mirrors I can conjure, blast them through this valley, perhaps to scare them off or flay the flesh from their bones. It'd be a drastic attempt, one that would expend much from me, but it is an option that we have. I'll trust in you in this one, Oracle. Let's try your option first.
Well, all right. Let's continue on our way, and should they catch up to us, we'll talk then.
So you guys want to continue moving through the valley then? All right. You guys moving deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you do, it gets darker and darker and darker until the steel gray light only barely shines through. And when it does so, it kind of has this weird effect, right? Where just sunbeam spears are bouncing off the obsidian glass beside you on every side and making this almost dim half-light effect on all of you. Occasionally you'll walk through what'll be a very bright beam kind of bouncing off horizontally across your face, and then you'll be in utter darkness, and then moving through another beam, right? And as you three basically move through here single file. After about, let's say, another hour of walking, right? You start hearing these sounds far behind you, but echoing and bouncing off of everything. And it's that croaking and that ribbiting and that honking, but they're twisted in weird ways. This is certainly, basically, you can tell that they're basically about an hour behind you, and you just not hear the sounds. But their voices are just so weird, not quite demonic, but absurdly monstrous as they spin around you, as if you're literally walking through the valley of death itself right now. But you keep on moving. You keep on walking through the sand, through beams of bright light, and then through long periods of utter darkness, again and again. And so you hear coming before you, right, coming towards you, an echoing sound that sounds like rattling chains. What do you guys do?
Murmur will stop immediately, and I'm assuming his weapons are probably already out, and he immediately sort of changes the grip on his blade and so that it's in a more of a ready position.
The erudite floats up on top of a spire of stone adjacent, up higher than the rest of his group here. Be a bit out of the way, maybe even not spotted in this encounter, but still close enough to be of use.
All right. Go ahead, Yannis.
I will wait patiently to see the source of these sounds.
So you guys don't see anything for a while, right? You wait maybe about 5 minutes or so, and you hear the rattling of chains, and you feel breezes moving past you. And then you see in one of the beams of light far ahead, something comes into motion for just a second, comes into your perception for just a moment, right when a particularly strong gust of wind washes over you. But then it's gone. You can't tell quite what it is. Do you guys still not move forward, or what do you do?
Do we still hear the rustling of chains?
You do. The rustling of chains is not stopping. It gets
Sure.
louder sometimes and then quieter.
Okay, yeah. Erudite would, after the urging, and it's not too, like, after it being a bit of time and not immediately apparent, Erudite would urge, come on, let's keep moving.
Yeah, and Murmur would start walking forward after the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, I would follow. I would only stop if we actually see something. Trying to get out of this valley as quickly as possible.
As you guys move forward and you go into another Some People Light, maybe 5 minutes later, you start to see what's causing this chain rustling sound. You see hanging from obsidian walls, impaled on obsidian blades and spikes, and even wrapped in their own chains, are dozens of chain devils. All of them are dead, but they're hanging here, their bodies not quite fresh, but not quite old either. And when the breeze or the wind comes through, it rattles their chains, and it moves the bodies ever so slightly. If you stop to look at any of the bodies, right, you can see that what killed them was massive heavy blows and traces of burning, as if concentrated light had just blasted flesh from skin. And then a heavy blow had finished the work, finished the job. Do you guys make any special note of this, or do you just keep on moving through it?
The erudite would pause at the bodies of these chain devils. He would notice some of them bleeding black blood. And that black blood, it would call to him as it calls to all humans. And he would don another of his small crystal vials that he's collected. This one is half full of the same liquid. And he would try to extract just a bit more from these devils.
You get it without complication.
Yeah. But the next thing he does is different than from what other humans would do. Others would hastily drink it. He just puts the stopper back on and keeps it safe in his bag. Not yet, he would say, mumbling to himself.
As he would gather some of the blood, I would go closer as well to examine them. Would it be if I could tell whether there was divine force that destroyed these?
Yeah, you can definitely tell that something tapped into some kind of wellspring of radiant divinity, right? And used it in combination with a very unique weapon that you can't quite tell what it is to basically smash these things and leave them hanging.
I would nod in approval silently.
Murmur would approach one of the dead chain devils, probably one that was a little further away from where the erudite and the oracle were, and he would dip one gauntleted finger in this black blood, staring at it, seeing his horned helmet reflected in this puddle, this droplet, and then very slowly he takes this finger with the blood on it and begins to write on his helmet in the blood the name that the corpse mountain whispered into his mind, the name that he had forgotten decades ago in the Ring of Teeth in the city of Malice, Razak Vashir. And then he stops, turns to the direction of his companions, and then gets up, wipes his hands, and moves back towards the two of them.
The erudite is studying the remains of these devils. Has the erudite, would he know of what being or what event would have caused this force?
Unless you use magical means, you have no idea.
Okay.
It's just another battlefield to you, really. Countless of them basically litter Crifoth.
Yeah.
I would look to him and say, what are you looking for?
You see the way that they're laid out. It's not a pattern, but still it holds many truths. It is those who can see the truth beyond the obscurity that they can see the cosmic truth.
Would
but
you
I'm
like
tired. I cannot
would-
see the truth
I can
no more.
tell you if you want.
What is it? Tell me what you can see, Oracle.
I'll take a step forward and with a normal blink, my eyes turn light, a white light that emanates from inside, and I will use my channel divinity to recall everything that happened here. As I see it, as I see all around me what happened in a series of ghostly visions as I am standing there.
So what you see is at first you see blackness crisscrossed by light, and the light keeps changing as time keeps moving around you, right? But in the past, because things are moving faster now. And then you get to the point where something starts to happen. You hear voices, you hear shouting, you hear screaming, thunderous screaming. No, not screaming, war shouts, but not war shouts from many beings, more shouts from one being who you can tell is an orc from how loud it is. And then you hear the fighting, and you hear the cracking, and you hear curses and abyssal and infernal, and you hear this whip of chains, and then you hear these massive blows, and then you hear glass shattering. And then you see things step into beams of light. You see chain devils, and they're whipping the chains, and they're trying to cut at something in the darkness. And then flying from the darkness is a massive bundle of chain, far thicker than theirs, burning, radiating white and red, and it smashes one into the wall and impales it on a spike and is whipped back into the darkness. And then you hear heavy breathing. And another one comes out, another chain devil is smited. And then you see a foot step from the darkness and into the light. And then you see the bloody, broken face of Hanad step out of the shadow. And she's breathing heavy. And you can see mist coming from her nose and from her mouth. And one of her tusks is completely broken. And you see a chain devil appear from behind her. And she turns and she again slays that one as she basically smites it into the wall, much as Lilith would have, you imagine, Oracle, as she was in this position. And then you see she continues moving and she continues laying waste to everything around her as she kills one chain devil after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And then she disappears into the darkness ahead of you, reappearing in another light beam, and then walking through that too, deeper into the darkness.
He would crack a smile and turn towards the others. It was our friend. Seems like the taste of divine was sweet, and she kept it inside her. It was Hanad, the orc.
Lives.
Yes. She lives with fiery rage and divine power.
Hopefully she does not blame us for the fate of Mother Camp. Murmur says as he walks up to you two, his helmet still dripping with the demon blood.
Maybe. After all, it was our kind that doomed the world.
The sins of the father should not be the sins of the son.
Unless we undo it, it's still upon us.
We are but 3. There is no way we can undo it.
I agree.
Then it is our fault.
Murmur just shakes his horn helmet back and forth, looking over at the erudite to see what he has planned next.
The erudite would motion to press on. It would be in the future that we would have to deal with Hanad or any straggling chain devils or any of these pursuing Suri, but that's the future. It is not now. Now we must act. We must press forward. And erudite continues to drift inches above the ground, silently towards their destination, their goal.
I would follow.
And Murmur follows as well.
You guys continue on through the darkness and the beams of light that crisscross your bodies and then once again leave you all blinded as you move through this valley of obsidian. The sounds of the croaking and the ribbiting, they don't get louder, but they change. And you hear the sound of breaking bones and of flesh being devoured. And you think to yourselves that they've probably happened upon the chain devils and have begun to consume them all. But that doesn't bother you. You continue moving, probably a bit happy that your pursuers have been stalled for some time. And then you see ahead of you a light. A crack of light in the darkness, different than the crisscross pillars and sunbeams that you've been moving through. No, this seems to be an exit, and you hear coming from that exit the sound of what sounds like rushing water. Do you guys keep moving towards it?
Area 8 would ascend to get a better vantage.
You're pretty deep in this obsidian, right, still.
Yeah.
So as you're moving upwards and you kind of like, you feel a spike here, you feel a blade here, you move around it. It takes you almost a full 10 minutes to get above these cliffs. And when you do, and you're standing on the top of them, on top of this massive twinned mountain of obsidian, you see before you, just over the edge of the cliffs, is that massive, long, snaking river of oil. You know, the rainbow sheen of oil slickness across of it, and a figure in the distance, 5 figures actually. On one side of the bank, the opposite side of the bank, is something sitting down. You think he's facing you. And then far off in the distance, beyond even that, on top of a dune, are the 4 spectral riders.
Upon seeing this, Area 8 descends carefully, not to slash himself open on these jagged obsidian blades. He descends within earshot of his 2 companions. That sound is but a river of oil, tainted far beyond sustenance. I don't know what things you can do, Oracle, but I fear that that is not our salvation. And I also saw a figure, robed. He saw me as I floated high above.
Then we have arrived. Let us go meet him.
You know of this figure?
No, but I saw him. I foresaw our meeting.
Did your foresight bode well?
As you said, there's no pattern. That's the ultimate truth. You can see the future, but you can change it however you like. But no, I didn't see him attacking us. If that's what you're asking. He was just sitting next to us.
Well, let us meet. Let us meet him, if you trust him so.
Murmur's helmet turns towards you, Oracle, and you just hear this dusty voice saying, "If we are put in peril because of this, Oracle, know that I will pay you back tenfold for what happened with the Pathos Shadow and the Black Shadow when the star fell on my head when I tried to save you. I will gut you like a trout." And then he turns and starts walking.
No doubt you will, my friend.
The Erudite would follow the Oracle if he is heading that way. He's not going to be the first or second to go, but the last in this case.
Who would be the first then? Murmur or Oracle?
Murmur would definitely be behind the Oracle if possible.
All right. So you guys step out into the light. Here's what the scene looks like. Stretching out before you, of course, is the standard bloody sands of Crifoth. Then you have that winding, super thick, super long river of oil, right? Stretching and winding before you. You look behind you and you see the 2 walls, right, of obsidian cliffs, and they're shining white in the sunlight. and the steel gray sun beating down on you, which is now at its zenith in the heavens. The stars are now frozen, or actually you can't see them at all. For the entire sky is almost white in color, right? The figure stands up across on the other side of the bank, and when it does so, Erudite, you get an odd feeling in the back of your neck, and your jaw, and your molars, right? As if you're staring at something that once left this world and has now returned to it. Something that is not actually here, but is only manifesting a version of itself here. That figure begins to walk forward, but it's very far away, easily more than 600 or 700 feet on account of the river. But when it reaches the edge of the river and it takes its first step on top of it, you can see that it's walking on top of the oil. And where it's walking, the sun is brighter around it, almost glowing. And when it steps on the oil, a great circle of flame erupts around it, right? As the oil bursts into fire because of the heat. And it begins to slowly move towards you guys, this figure wreathed in flame and sunlight. But still, 600-700 feet away. What do you guys do?
The erudite sees this figure advancing, and in a weird case of symmetry, he as well would walk atop the oil, but he's not actually walking atop it. He's just floating inches above, matching this figure's pace. He would get a few yards off the riverbank, turn back to his two companions. He'd give them a nod and continue forwards.
Murmur would call out as he continues forwards, "Try not to die."
The oracle would step up to the bank and gaze upon the figure approaching and wait.
When you two step to the bank, you also notice something else. You notice footsteps in the sand, not going into the oil river, but leading out of the crevice you guys just came out of and going far along the river, walking beside it. The footsteps are massive, and you can easily tell them, Murmur and Oracle, to be the footprints of an orc. Regardless, we move back to the to the river of oil. As you walk forward, Erudite, the figure stops in the middle of the river, right? The oil flowing underneath it and flames whipping about it. The heat as you get closer is absolutely unbearable. And you find that, well, this is what you basically discover. If you get within 100 feet closer of this being, all right, you will be in an area of extreme heat. Mechanically, this means you will gain 3 points of exhaustion every minute that you're there, right? In addition to taking 3d10 fire damage every turn.
Yeah, upon feeling the heat, he would not advance further, but would instead call out. I'd imagine, like I'm 100 and some feet away from this thing, still kind of hovering over the center, or maybe a quarter down this, or a quarter across the river, yell out with a magically augmented loud voice. Who are you?
The figure hears you, and you see its hands reach up like this, and then turn, and then grab the sides of its hood, and it pulls back the hood, and you see a bald head of an ash elf. The ear is so long, they don't just touch, they actually go past each other and continue turning, and then turn back in a helix of pointed ears, almost like a crown rising above the back of its head. Its eyes are pure black, and it is weeping sunlight from them that drips down its cheeks, staining the face mask of cloth it wears, black as it goes, and then becoming white again as it drips into the oil and lifts out more flames. It looks at you, and then it raises a hand into the sky, and you see its hand like this, slowly close, finger by finger. And as it does, the steel gray sun darkens and dims until it's completely gone, and the sky is black, and the only light remaining comes from the flames of this creature. But now that absurd heat is gone, erudite, and it moves through the fire, no longer creating any more, and then it walks past you. This ash elf, taller than you by a solid foot, and then its helix ears taller another foot still. Do you do anything?
So this, as the ash elf walks towards me, I would rise above, but then he walks past me, walks under me. And I would just rotate in the air. He did not answer what I had asked him. And I'm gonna, from this vantage point, 10 feet up above him, just watch him continue to walk.
He walks to the other edge, the other bank, until he's standing before Murmur and Oracle. And then he walks between you two, turns, and he sits down. He stares into the rushing oil around him. The world is basically pitch black around you all. There is, again, no light other than soft firelight coming from the river. If you would, Oracle, actually, no, I want to make you a check. Not the Oracle, Erudite. I want to have you make a check for this. But Erudite, you realize that you're no longer, for right now, you're not in Crifoth at the moment. You're somewhere else. You don't know where, but you are somewhere else. Somewhere between the sun, the chaos, the Crifoth itself, somewhere. And as he sits down, he says nothing. He just continues to silently weep. What do you guys do?
The erudite floats over. He's recognized the subtle changes in the world around him. The man who studied every inch of the world can see the slightest of changes. He knows that he's no longer at the same river of oil, the same spot where they left. And he would float back to his two companions next to this crouched, weeping, sitting ash elf. He too would take a seat, maybe 20 feet from him, next to his companions. Sit, he would say to Murmur and the Oracle. Let us rest in the company of this ash elf. And almost a little bit of a chuckle is sparked by his words.
The oracle would stand completely still, and as this avalanche of realization comes upon him, as he sees those brilliant sunlight tears, very similar to the cold distant lights of the stars, but from much closer, that what are the suns but stars up close? And he would stammer to him, as he sometimes felt this comforting, watchful presence of the starlight, maybe manifested like someone watching over him. He would just stammer the words, "Is it you? Are you the stars?"
That ash elf sits there, one hand draped over its knee like this, the other kind of stretched out. And then it says, in a sad voice, "What do you think a god looks like?"
I do not think of what a god looks like. I know.
Do you know what love looks like?
And Murmur actually says, yes, I do.
And do you know what the sin of having that love destroyed looks like.
And I would say, I would whisper, yes.
This being reaches out, this ash elf, and it scoops up a hand of oil and it lifts it up. And in the reflection of its starlight tears, you see a golden orb in it, the golden sun itself. And you see it smearing very slowly. And then it pours that oil back into the river. And the ash elf says, "What did she ever do to deserve the love and the murder of you humans?" Was she too bright? Was she too quiet? Was she not bright enough? She rose every day. She made your plants green. She made your water warm. She made your air breathable. And yet you have killed her. You and your brothers. Those horned things.
But the sun, the two suns, they don't bring goodness. They just bring death. Death by fury, death by anger.
What is the difference between love and hatred when you are a god? And in the absence of sound after he says that question, the ash elf leans its head back and it turns and it looks off towards the left, right? And at you, Murmur, and then beyond you. And you feel a breeze coming from that direction and it rushes past you all. And as it does so, you smell something I don't think you've ever smelled before, Murmur. Maybe once or twice when the demons of malice were trying to taunt you and make you know what life used to be like for humans. You don't know what it smells like. You can't pin the word to it. Neither can you, Oracle, but Erudite, you can, as that breeze is over you too. The smell of roses, of flowers, of oranges, of fruits, of life, of greenery. You smell that deep, Erudite. And then it's gone just a moment later. And then this ash elf says again, "This place used to be so bright, and now it is black. For all the light has left it to go fight a war that you started and could not finish." And go ahead.
But the past is the past. The future is the future, but the now is now. A war in the past is not a war of today.
The war of the past has continued and became the war of today, human. Like all of your species, no matter how smart or how arcane you become, you still have the insight of ants climbing around in tunnels where my light does not shine. But let me tell you this, human who calls yourself erudite, and who looks at you when he says this, and his tears are still flowing and his eyes are still black. And what this being, this ash elf, says to you is, you wander through these sands, not knowing how you will die, but knowing that you will. Not knowing where your sister is for the second or the third or the fourth time in your life. And you make no motion to do what must be done, as I did when your people started this so long ago, when I killed my lover the first time. You are pathetic.
You act as if there is something that could be done. That is what you say, and yet I have looked. Trust me, I have looked. I have flipped every stone, counted the legs of every beetle, delved beneath the stones and bones of this world, looking for something that can be done.
If a man sees an object he has not seen before, he sees the object, but he knows not what it is. You have long since saw what must be done, but you did not know it. This is what separates you from others. And he reaches back into the oil and he pulls out another hand of it, and you see rippling across its surface is Hanad walking through the sands. And then she pours it out after you've all seen it, and he says, "She knows what she saw. Are you no greater than this one woman?"
And what is this that you're referring to?
He doesn't answer.
It is strength, determination, the will to fight, hopeless or not, to do something, to not stand idly. 3 men or 3 million, we still have to fight. I told you before, it's still our fault if we don't do something.
Strength isn't the answer. A maggot can wish to be as strong as it wants. It is still just a maggot, burrowing beneath some carcass of some animal decaying in the suns.
It is the strength of character that matters.
The strength of character will not bring down that which was once Jamuron. You are foolish, Oracle. You look too far to the future. You should be focused on the present. Survival is the one law of this world, whether we like it or not. And Murmur, who is still standing, looks at the weeping ash elf and just says even more firmly, the sins of the father are not the sins of the son. Our ancestors did ruin this world. I have heard the stories, but it is not the doing of the 3 people you see before you.
The ash elf sweeps an arm across in front of him, and the entire river of oil vibrates for a second, and the fires get brighter to cast more light so you can see this. And you see, all at once, spanning before you, Razak Fashir, you see your entire life. You see every single human being you have killed and eaten. You see every orc whose skull you smashed, every tiefling whose throat you slit, every ash elf whose heart you've ripped out. You see every single corpse that you've left in your long career as a murderer. And the ash elf says, "All these things I have watched, and you tell me you have not ruined this world."
I was only trying to survive in a world that was already ruined. And there is no reason for you to show me these things. And Murmur actually starts to reach for his sword, his hand shaking a little inside the gauntlet.
You can draw that blade, but it will not help you here. You cannot fight your memories, human. That is one mistake that your people have always made. Let me tell you, you do not know what an ant is. But one ant is weak. One human is weak. 1,000,000 ants are strong. 1,000,000 humans are strong. But now there are but 3 of you. But each one of you is more than just one ant. How many humans have you consumed? How much flesh? How many shards of the divine? Are you human anymore? Is it fair for me to call you that? Tell me, one who calls yourself erudite, do you honestly think that you're still human? That you're still just a maggot, as you put it?
Erudite gives pause to this. He would give a slow nod. We are but ants. That is why there are only 3.
3, yes, in the flesh, and in the spirit, and in the soul, but not in truth. And then he reaches up to his face, and he pulls from his face a handful of tears, and he sprays them at each of you. And as he does so, he points behind each of you. And as you guys look behind you, you see stretching out into infinity countless human beings, millions, millions, billions stretch out behind you. And the sun says this to you three, this ash elf, this sun-kissed being. It says to you three, you are the last humans on Earth. And that means you have inside of you the seeds to sow a forest far greater than there ever has been and there ever will be again. Every single child you may possibly give birth to, I will hate. I will hate and try to kill with my heat, with every fiber of my being. But in the process of doing so, I will give you the light you need to live, so that you can kill what I hate even more. So that I can kill, so that you can kill, so that your descendants, if they should come across, if they should arise, can kill that which killed my love. And then it points into the ocean again, this river of oil, and you see four faces. You see the demonic face of Malice with the 7 eyes stitched up in the 1 eye in the center. You see the whipped ball Fang, that is the demon of song. And then you see 2 more faces. You see the face of an ascetic with pale white skin, wrapped in these almost like a hijab, right, in a turban, with oil leaking from the eyes. And then you see a bald head, perfectly chiseled, with what looks like this multicolored gas coming from the nose and from the mouth, forming this long beard, and then wiping around to form this long mane of gas. And it points with 4 fingers towards these 4 faces. And it says, to you 3, in 4 days you will die. This all beings know. But I hope you take them with you. So that way what happens next is not a repeat of what has happened before. And then the ash elf goes silent again.
But what can 3 humans do that leagues of orcs, hordes of Suri, armies of ash elves, ranks of blood knights cannot do?
They can complain of their weakness.
But can't you see? We are all of humanity working together. Impossible to do when there were millions of us. A lot easier when there are only 4 or 3. And we have all the might of humanity behind us. Until all of us are extinguished, humanity is still here. And we will correct our mistake before we leave this world. That is the one thing we all should aspire to do. Leave this world just a little bit better than how we found it.
Your debate tires me, humans. I did not call you here to convince you. I called you here so that you could realize that you are ignorant of what you can do and what you have done, and what will come to pass in 4 days. And as it's speaking, you look up, or maybe you don't look up, you just realize it's starting to get a little bit brighter in the sky. And you realize this ash elf is slowly getting more and more transparent, and those flames are getting dimmer and dimmer until they're gone. And it says once more, but now you have greater problems to face. And then you're all blinded. You open your eyes, and you're all lying down in the sand. Your feet or your knees in the oil river. The sun has moved quite a bit off into the distance, where it's now beginning to sit low on the horizon. 8 hours have passed, and mechanically you've all just taken a short rest. However, as you guys wake up, you hear ribbiting and croaking and honking. And when you look up, you see that you're all surrounded by 666 Cicerdi. They're not attacking, though some have weapons out, but they're all watching you. And they're close, within 30 feet, the first wave of them. And they're all communicating in this strange, lizard-like language. As you guys gain your bearings, how do you feel about this vision quest you just experienced, about this astral trip you just went through, and about the situation you're now in?
That being spoke of lies is what Erudite was thinking. Maybe even say it out loud. All lies that left that Ash Elf's lips. Called himself a god. I know there are no gods. It spoke of hope. I know there is no hope.
That's why I hadn't talked to you about it. I always felt this unbearable burden of humanity still on every one of our shoulders. But I didn't dare ask you. After all you've done, I didn't dare ask you to face them, to correct our mistake. Seems like beings much greater and higher than us feel the same way. We will die. That much is certain. I can tell you that without looking into the future. But we should make this world right before we go.
Murmur, while this is going on, he's laying in the sand with his feet in the oil river, and very quietly he just says, "I'm sorry." Whether it's to himself or to this ash elf, whoever he was, he just says this very quietly, and then he starts to get up and turn to look at this horde of Sasuri nearby, and he waits.
The
Go ahead.
Erudite rises to his feet, grabs his silver sword. His feet lift off the ground again. He looks better, more recovered after this long, short rest in the grueling sun. But his face is not one of resolve or determination, but it's still just as defeated as it was before, as it always has been. Sure, we can survive yet another day.
It is all that matters.
The future is the future. The past is the past. Today, we live today.
And as the Sasuri watch you guys levitate into the air or stand up and face them, all of them, much like the Pathos Shadow did, go to their knees and bring their clawed hands together in a sign of prayer before the three of you. And they all begin making this beautiful, harmonious song as they begin to ribbit and croak and to honk until these cacophonous melodies come together into something beautiful, something brilliant. And they are quite literally praying to you. And Erudite, you know this. You know the words of the Sasuri. And you can catch a few here and there from what they're saying, as they refer to you as omen gods, or beings of fortune, or signs of war, or signs of the end of the beginning of the end, as strange as that sentence sounds. And the prayers just continue as you guys are basically hemmed in against this river unless you want to swim or fly across it. What do you guys do in the face of this?
I hear them speak the words of the tongue, a tongue that I cannot speak, but I can understand. They're praising us. They worship us. They worship maggots.
Then perhaps these maggots should walk among them, and they will let us pass.
I think they know. I think everyone knows. A change is coming.
Yeah, 4 days is when that change is going to happen. Oracle.
Maybe.
That is the change. When our lives end. Let us leave this place. Let us leave these reptiles behind. And Erudite drifts downstream of this oil river, distancing himself from the choir of Suri.
I would nod towards the praying lizard folk and turn and follow the Erudite.
So are you going to swim through the river of oil? Since he's floating across it.
Oh, we're going. I thought we were going.
No, because they have you basically hemmed in a semicircle, so you have to go through them if you want to go past them. Or have to go across the river if you want to do that.
An Erudite was going over the river.
No, I'm floating above the crowd, essentially lifting up and then kind of going parallel with the river, but not across it.
All right. So if you guys follow that then, and you realize, remember that you're also following the same footsteps that Hanad left behind, what you assume is Hanad's. And the Susuri don't move for you guys, but it's almost as if they kind of lay down further so you can actually walk on top of them, as odd as that is. And you realize that many of these Susuri have these massive big stones chained to their backs, right? And as you guys are walking across these stones, you can feel something underneath them move in response, even though the Susuri bodies don't move, as if these stones are kind of holding something back, right? So, but you guys make it over the crowd, and you begin walking down the river, following the footsteps. Do you guys say anything to each other as you do, or do you just walk in silence?
The Erudite would be silent in his travel. He's not stewing, but he's definitely not nearly as vocal or jovial as he was before.
Murmur is walking quietly, still processing everything with the Ash Elf and the Suri, and I mean he's seen a lot of shit in his time, but definitely nothing like this. And in a way, he's almost awed by it, but he definitely doesn't say anything with the Oracle nearby.
The honor would just be. His mind would be racing, but he would stay quiet and follow the pathway down with his eyes.
So the three of you walk, and it's as if Crifoth for just a while becomes mundane again. That smear of a sun is gone. The gray steel sun is beginning to set, and night is overtaking you. And you've left the prayer song, the Susuri, behind you, for better or for worse. The river of oil flows freely beside you as you walk along its banks, down, tracing the footprints of the orc who came this way before you. And the further you guys walk, the farther you guys go, you realize that something has changed, something is amiss. And you realize that on none of the dunes, those four riders are completely gone. They're mysteriously have disappeared entirely, those spectral beings. And as interestingly sad or happy as you may be, or relieved at this revelation, you see something else on the horizon. And then you turn and you look behind you and you realize you never did see those obsidian cliffs when you returned, as if you were further down the river than you remembered. And when you look back at the horizon, a cold chill, I imagine, would go through you specifically, Murmur, as you see before you that this river of oil is leading straight into the gates of Malice, surrounded by red sand, bones, ruins, broken mountains, and behind those gates are the spires, the pillars, and the twisted architecture of the greatest and most haunted city of devils in all of Crifoth. The sun sets completely, and the third day comes to an end. And as it does so, the gates swing open. Before we end this session, what do you guys do when you realize that you're coming up on Malice?
We went the wrong way, Erudite would say. As he tries to figure out a way to not get double back on their route, but perhaps see a means of getting across the river.
The wrong way? The oracle would ask rhetorically and smile.
And again, you would hear that throaty, rasping laugh as Murmur starts to chuckle inside of his helmet as he looks towards the oracle and then to the erudite and shakes his head and just says, "And this is the place where hope truly ends. All roads lead to Malice."
But why step into the maw of the beast?
We were not heading this way, erudite, and you are smart enough, I would assume, to guide us away from this place, and yet here we are. As I said, all roads lead to Malice, apparently. And he shrugs these massive brawny shoulders, seeming still ill at ease, but definitely surprised that we ended up here.
The oracle would nod to agree with Murmur and add, all roads lead to redemption.
To death.
Same thing.
I don't think so.
If redemption is death to you, why do you still live?
Because it needs meaning first.
And as you say that, the camera moves away from you three, and it's moving down this river of oil until it gets to the gates, and then it moves into the blackness of the gates. And as it moves in deeper and deeper, we can see on these shadow blackened walls, right, these great chunks of stone are torn out, these great pillars are shattered, large steel buildings have been dented and melted and broken down, and you see corpse after corpse of demon is lying about. And then you see, walking forward, one foot after the next, is Hanad, those chains dragging behind her. And then you see it itself, the open-faced citadel where the demon Joruman used to sit. And the camera moves inside there, and we see his renamed form of Malice sitting on a cushion, and chained up behind him is the unconscious form of Lilith. And as the camera zooms in on her bloody, unmasked face, it turns around and it looks over her shoulder. And what we see is Malice being confronted by Hanad herself. And that's where the session is going to end today. A very quick session, just a quick hour and 40 minutes or so. An interlude between last session where some violence happened and next session I hope you guys tune into where some crazy shit is going to happen. Probably about a 3-hour, maybe even 4-hour session next week. So we'll see what happens. But this has been day 3 of the last 3 days. Sorry, the last 7 days, excuse me. I've had my lovely players here. I'm -1. We have Connor playing the erudite, who's one half of Dice on Ice, who created the Crifoth game. You know, still in play testing right now before it drops out later this year, I think, or early next year. We have. Oh, go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, I'd be releasing June this year.
June, perfect. Then we have Jason, all right, great player, and then Yannis, all the way in Greece, who I'm sure is still happy to get some early sleep because next week he's going to be sleeping late. And with that being said, everybody, my name is Marquise Hardis. It's been a fantastic game. Thank you, Jake, for letting me host this here, and I'm out. So go ahead and take me the fuck out of here, Jake.